The premise of ghost or spirit is that we are made with two separate components, our body and soul, or whatever name you'd choose to call it. It opens up to the possibility of another more powerful spiritual entity taking the control of our body. As our self-identity is largely based on what we think we know who we are and that we could control our body as we like, the idea of losing them is understandably terrifying. No wonder some of the most terrifying horror films evolves around possession, The Exorcist being the most prominent example. From what Koreans would commonly understand, there are several different degrees of losing the control to another spiritual entity. The first is what people often refer as 홀리다, which I'd translate as being tricked. It usually means when your mind or sense is temporarily tricked and are made to think or see what isn't actually there. Most common example being seeing a way where there is none, or walking around the same loop thinking you are lost. Second is an entity attaching itself to a person. It hasn't taken over the control of your personality or body, but causes inexplicable ailment and misfortunes. The third is what we call 빙의, a full-blown possession that your body and identity being taken over by the alien entity. And today's subject is the third case. I know possession is a controversial subject. For too long, alleged mental illness were wrongly cited as spiritual or demonic possession, and I think it did contribute to our lingering taboo and fear about mental illness in general to this day. But in some instances, there are definitely some elements that defy scientific logic, and I hope today's stories might represent some of such. So, here are 3 allegedly true stories about people possessed. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by host, Anthony. A story my friend told me. When he was 4 or 5, his parents noticed him behaving like a totally different boy. His character, behavior, manner of speech, facial expression all seemed to have changed overnight. Until then he was, as he still is as a grown-up man, gentle and ever so calm. But it all changed overnight. Now he would throw tantrum constantly to buy him more toys, was infinitely more temperamental, and jealous too. The family kept a pet dog that my friend used to adore himself, but now he threw a hell of tantrum at the first sign of his parents paying attention to the dog. On top of that, he was seen mumbling something unintelligible to himself when he was left playing by himself. His parents were, of course, confused, while his mother brushed it off as him going through a terrible force, but his father took it more seriously. Probably as a way of disciplining, he treated his son cold, stern, and distant. But my friend's behavior got only worse and more violent. He attacked other kids to take their toys away or actively abused the pet dog. One day he was caught trying to strangle the dog. His father snatched him up by his wrist and dragged him to his library and pinned the little boy to the wall. "Who are you? What do you want from my little boy?" Father sternly shouted. My friend stared back his dad with a stiff face, then suddenly bursted into loud, creepy laughters. He carried on laughing that way for a few minutes and passed out. His father was now sure his son was possessed. He put the boy on bed and kept his side all night long, praying and hoping that his boy regain himself when he should wake up. When the boy woke up the following day, he was indeed calmer. His father observed his son with hawk's eyes and detected the boy wasn't really himself yet. His eyes didn't have focus, and he behaved more like a puppet controlled by an outer force. But father was afraid if the ghost wouldn't do any more harm should it realize that he was still suspecting, so kept a calm face and treated his son normally. But behind, both parents suffered a lot and felt lost what they could do for their son. One day my friend was out with his mom. They happened to pass a playground. There was no other kids there, but my friend ran to the playground and played around madly excited. Seeing him going weird once again, his mom could just watch on worryingly. On the side of the playground was a little pergola, and there sat a monk watching it all. His eyes met my friend's mom's, and he stood up and came up to her.
"The boy is trapped,"
he calmly said. All the bottled-up emotions bursted in her, and the mother hung on to the monk's sleeve to help him. He calmed her down and instructed her what to do. For the next 10 days, she should bring her son out to the playground and let him play. There wasn't much to worry about, as the boy himself would want to go back home after about an hour of play. The play clothes boy wore each day should mom take back to the playground and hand over to him the following day. On the 10th day, mom should burn the last clothes the boy wore, give him a bath, and take him to the temple where the monk resided, and leave the boy with him for 3 days. For the mother, it was the last hope, and follow the monk's instruction. Boy would play around like mad on the playground, but just as monk said, after an hour or so, he would come and ask to go back home. As days passed, he seemed getting calmer, and sometimes even seemed to regain his original gentle self. That way the 10th day came. After the usual time on the playground, mom burnt the clothes the boy wore and took him to the bathroom. He said out of blue, "I don't want to go. I have fun here." Mom asked him what he meant, but he didn't say anything more. At the temple, the monk welcomed them. The boys surprisingly didn't resist and followed him into the temple calmly. 3 days later, Mom came back to the temple, where again the monk welcomed her. Only then the monk explained the whole story. He confirmed that the boy had been possessed by another soul. It wasn't a malicious one and didn't harm the boy, but he was left a bit exhausted nonetheless, both physically and mentally. He then asked,
"Didn't the boy have an older brother?"
Mom was surprised. Indeed, she had another son born a year before my friend. But 2 months before my friend's birth, he died of acute fever. Monk nodded and said,
"I believe it was the older brother's spirit. He must have been hanging around his younger brother all the while. Eventually he seemed to have got angry to see his parents seemingly having forgot all about him, and all your love going to his younger brother. So the spirit of the lonely boy got into his younger brother's body, as a way to feel the love he had missed out.
And that was why he was so desperate to do everything he couldn't do in his short life. All the toys and playing in the playground. He didn't really have any ill intention, but was just hungry of love. The monk saw it and let the boy play as much as he liked, for 10 days is a long time for a little boy. And for 3 days in the temple, the monk coaxed and persuaded the spirit to finally let it go and move on. Hearing it all explained, my friend's mom broke into tears. Losing her first son was such a painful memory for herself too, and tried to bury it behind. But the spirit of the dead boy was watching it all and got hurt. She cried for a long time for the loss and regret. When she calmed herself down, the monk brought my friend back. He seemed somewhat lost, not understanding what he was doing there. But his mother would see in his eyes that her son was back to himself. Back home, my friend seemed to still not understanding why there were suddenly so many toys in his room and why his pet dog would scare away from him. But eventually grew out of it and led a normal life again. His mom took out her first son's photos again that she had put away, and when my friend got older, told him about his older brother. The family would to this day offer memorial ritual for the dead boy. I'm a big fan of everything horror and paranormal. I haven't been always like that, well, not until one summer day in 2002. I was a freshman then. I woke up in the morning as usual, but I wasn't feeling quite as usual. A headache. I had a glass of water and headed to the bathroom, but it only got worse, now also with dizziness. By the time I came out of the bathroom, the living room in front of me was spinning. Soon came pressing sense of uncomfort and nausea. I went back to bed hoping to fall back to sleep. I fell asleep feeling the world spinning around me. When I woke up again, I was wet with sweat and feeling inexplicably irritated. I walked out of the room, breathing hard and cold sweat rolling down my back. The familiar living room felt somewhat strange. I was looking for high points in the room, upon the standing air conditioner, and tried up the dining table. I couldn't understand myself. What's going on? Have I gone mad? I was panicking inside, but my body was moving like it had its own will, hopping one spot to the next. There's not enough space on the top of the air conditioner. Top of the bookshelf? No, it's filled with the boxes and whatnot. Then where? Where? I then thought of the wardrobe in my room. I ran back in my room, panting like a desperate dog. Before I thought what to do next, my body was already at it to climb up the wardrobe. Of course, it wasn't an easy task. The wardrobe almost fell forward with my weight, and I stumbled back down. In that commotion, I happened to look into the full-length mirror on the wall. I almost could not recognize my own face there. Tears were pouring down on the face that was already drenched with sweat, and it was all frowned up in the way I had never seen from myself. My obsession for the high spot kicked in again, and in the end I chose the desk. Not really high enough, but no better options. I jumped up on the desk, turned around, and fell straight down on my back like a diver. The pain was so excruciating that I couldn't breathe a while. When I barely managed to sit up, I faced once again my own reflection on the mirror, still frowned up and tears still pouring down. But looking at myself, my mind seemed to gain a bit of clarity, and with that my face also began to relax back to my usual self. I came out of the room and sighed of relief that my body wasn't looking for a high spot again. I picked up the TV remote, hoping that the television might help me to regain the sense of normality. But before I turned it on, I heard somebody running out of my room. I don't understand how, but my body was reacting before my brain once again, and before I knew, I was running out to the street, not even wearing shoes. I just ran and ran till I met the cars and crowds. I stopped to catch a breath and instinctively looked back and saw a little girl in a traditional rainbow shirt running from afar. Her hands were stretched towards me. Not only her speed was impossible, but her body and arms weren't shaking at all despite the speed. I screamed and just ran again. I saw a big department store in front of me and felt that I had to get there if I were to live. I just crossed away among the running cars and pushed my way into the store. Only when I saw the bright light inside, full of crowd, I collapsed down. Soon a couple of security staffs ran up to me, and only then I saw my feet all bloody. But I didn't even feel the pain. I apologized and came back on the street. Somehow I wasn't feeling scared anymore, and I felt calm, reasonable mind setting back. Sometime later, I sought a fortune teller and told him what I experienced.
"That was close," he said. "You were then possessed by a ghost, but your guardian angel saved you. You said you sought a high spot despite of yourself, didn't you? It was your guardian angel leading you up to shake the ghost off by a hard fall."
I don't know if his explanation is true or not, but having experienced a mysterious situation myself, I can't deny the existence of paranormal. And if it were really thanks to my guardian angel that I survived the ordeal, thank you, whoever you are. I live with my boyfriend, and this happened last year. We were in bed then. While boyfriend set the alarm on his phone, I was leaning on his chest. I was surprised to hear him suddenly mumbling something strange to himself, something like, red brick house on the hill," and so on. I lifted my head to look at him, and he was already asleep. Was he talking in his sleep? I looked at him closely when he suddenly said in somewhat strange thin voice, "Why are you staring?" "Nothing. What did you mean by red brick house?" I said. "There is a red house up on the hill," he said. I sensed it wasn't really the boyfriend talking. Who are you? You're not my boyfriend, are you?" I asked straightforward. Yes, I'm your boyfriend." "Don't lie. You're not him. Who are you? Come straight. What are you?" It went back and forth a few times more, but when I kept insisting, he finally said, "Well, I'm Sujin." Never heard of that name. "So, why are you here? What are you doing in my boyfriend?" I said. "He has a weak body and tea. It was easy, she said. I told her that she couldn't stay there and to leave my boyfriend alone, but she downright refused. I remember the scenes of exorcism from TV programs where shamans talked these spirits sympathetically to coax them out, so decided to change the tactic and asked how she died. I slashed my wrist. My mom beat me, my dad abused me, and mates bullied me. Nobody helped me, she said. I further asked when she killed herself and how old she was. Apparently, Sujin was 19 when she killed herself 7 years ago. I kept asking where her home was, which school she attended, and so on. But she abruptly said, I can't talk anymore. Your boyfriend is waking. And with that, boyfriend started snoring. I couldn't sleep that night, more worried about him than scared. In the morning I asked him about the previous night, but he seemed not remembering anything. Night came again, and we were watching a film sitting on bed side by side. Out of blue, he started pulling fluffs off the duvet. I didn't think much of it, but he carried on for 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. I asked what was up and pulled his arms, but he pushed my hand hard and carried on without response. I nervously shouted to wake up, and he suddenly came around saying, what's up? I told him how he pulled fluffs like mad, but he denied and accused me for being funny from the previous night. Another day, another night. As usual, we were in bed. Boyfriend was asleep already while I was fiddling with my phone. Suddenly he said, Hi. I looked up and he said, It's me again, Sujin. I decided to carry on asking about her. Is there some specific time when you can talk through him? I said. When he gets weak, then I can say what I want, she said. Her response vexed me. How dare an evil to choose when my boyfriend got weak? I abruptly turned on the light, thinking a ghost should dislike bright light. Turn it off, or else I'm gonna hurt him. I can kill him, she said. I felt helpless and had to do as I was told. I tried to persuade Sujin now. I love my boyfriend. I don't want to see him suffer. Why don't you rather come into my body? I said. I can't get inside of you. There's some guy guarding you behind, she said. I was surprised with the response. Who could she mean by that? Could it be my dad? My dad passed away when I was a teenager. I asked if that guy had thick eyebrows and slender body, and Sujin confirmed he did. I got so emotional that I could not try to talk to Sujin anymore that night. Next morning, boyfriend didn't remember any of that again. He's a hardcore skeptic and didn't even want to hear me talking about ghosts and possession. It was quiet for a few days afterwards. Regardless, I could not dare to fall asleep in case something should happen again. And one night, it did. I could tell he was possessed because boyfriend suddenly stopped snoring, which he always does when he sleeps. Not just snoring, he actually stopped breathing altogether. I shook him about to wake him up.
"Stop it,"
Sujin said.
"I'm taking him tonight. Stop bothering me."
I was shocked. I shouted back, "How dare you? It's my boyfriend, leave him alone," and so on, and shook her boyfriend even harder. Boyfriend woke up with one big deep breath. I must have looked a mess with the tears and sweat. I asked if he really didn't feel anything. Didn't he at least have a weird dream? He did. Of a woman with a long hair beckoning him with her slashed right hand. But he still didn't want to hear anything about ghosts. A few nights later, Sujin came back. I pleaded to her. "Please stop it, Sujin. Why are you trying to take my boyfriend away?"
"His days are numbered anyway. He's destined to die young. Why, if your love's so great, are you going to die in his place?"
she said. I said, "Yes, take me instead." Sujin threatened me if I really meant it, telling me how painful death was and even more terrible after death. And I just kept telling her that I didn't care. It was again quiet for a few nights. To be honest, I was afraid if Sujin wouldn't really come back to take boyfriend or me. A week passed. I and boyfriend had drinks in our room one evening. He got so drunk in the end, he was dozing off still sitting down. I told him to come up to bed and sleep it off, but he didn't respond. His focusless eyes were just staring at me, and I knew he was possessed again. He pointed his finger at my necklace and said in Sujin's voice,
"So pretty."
"Isn't it? Boyfriend gave it to me," I said.
"So pretty. I want it. Give it to me,"
she said. "No, I can't. It means a lot to me," I said.
"Give it. Give it, give it, give it, give it. I want it,"
she carried on. I felt so frustrated that I slapped boyfriend, half hoping to wake him up, half wanting to slap pesky Sujin. Boyfriend slapped me back. He carried on talking in Sujin's voice.
"Why do you hit me? How dare you?"
He tried to keep slap and beat me. I held on to boyfriend's hands, but he was too strong. In the end I said, "Stop it! I'll give you my necklace! Isn't that enough?" I put the necklace around the boyfriend's neck, and Sujin was all excited.
"Oh, pretty, pretty, so pretty."
It was all getting too much for me. Tears were pouring out, and I went out to have a smoke and calm myself down. A few more quiet days passed. My insomnia had become chronic, and that night too I was just lying next to boyfriend.
"Daughter,"
boyfriend said. Was he possessed again? But why calling me daughter now?
"Aye, daughter, my little girl,"
he continued, and for some reason I felt it was my dad. "Is that you, Dad?" I said.
"You forgot your older daddy's voice already,"
he said, and I was all in tears. Dad, I miss you so much. I'm so sorry I wasn't a good daughter to you. I should have been nicer to you when you were alive. I'm sorry, Dad. All the loneliness and emotional strain I felt for the past few months poured out, and I was hanging on to him like a little child.
I love you, my little girl. Don't cry, he said. Do you really love this boy so much?
I do, Dad. I really do, I said. He sighed deep. Then we carried on talking a while, pouring out all the love and care we failed to express when Dad was alive. He then said,
If you really love him so much, I can't help it. Now, I must go. Remember how much I love you.
I cried he couldn't go, he should stay next to me. But he assured once again his love and care for me, and disappeared. Next morning, boyfriend woke up saying he felt so light and refreshed. Indeed, he seemed more energetic than ever for the longest time. Since that day, he has not showed any sign of being anyway weird or possessed. Could it be that my dad took Sujin away with him? Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for your listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. To be perfectly honest, possession is a subject I find personally harder to relate to, probably because I'm a man of strong ego, or simply because I haven't had any real experience. Nevertheless, it's a fascinating subject and definitely terrifying. What do you think about possession? Could it be real, or do you think it's a misdiagnosed mental illness? Let me know in the comment. Next week will be another episode about possession, but this time extending further to exorcism. Ooh. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed my work, why not give me a boost with your like and comment? And if you haven't yet, I would really appreciate your subscription too. For my little channel, every single like, comment, and subscription means a lot. Thank you. I'll see you in the next. Stay safe and take care.